Hello, and welcome to the Paranormal Operator YouTube channel, where we cover all things paranormal, supernatural, and occult. I'm your host, at Operator23. In this episode of Operator Movie Reviews, we will be discussing Immaculate. This first part is going to be spoiler-free. I will put the timestamp down in the description for the chapters, so you can skip over this if you would like. Immaculate centers around our protagonist, Sister Cecilia, who is played by Sydney Sweeney, a newly minted nun. Having transferred to a convent from the States, the convent is in Italy, all is not quite as it appears. And as you've basically seen in the trailer, and as you can deduce from, the title of the movie, Sister Cecilia has an immaculate conception. Essentially, she gets pregnant while still being a virgin. The trailer does not spoil anything, and it's a fairly good trailer. It gives you just enough to maybe make you want to go see it, but it doesn't give anything away. That being said, I can't really say there is much to spoil. The only thing immaculate about this movie is perhaps Sweeney's acting. The music, cinematography, and set design are all fairly standard horror, and I'll give it some props. Okay, it doesn't skip out on the gore. There's plenty of blood. If you're into that sort of thing, there is blood galore. I mean, it's everywhere. Overall, it's a pretty okay movie. It's standard, so I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 5. Probably not worth paying to go see it in the theaters, but it's not a terrible movie, and the casual horror enthusiast may very well enjoy it. So, that's really about all I can say without spoiling anything, so let's get into it. Spoiler warning. Spoilers ahead in 3, 2, 1. So the film opens. It's at night. You have a nun. She is doing her evening prayers. She sneaks into, I'm assuming, the Mother Superior's bedroom to steal the keys. She does it very loudly. It's as though she's never stolen anything before in her life. But the whole point of this is she's trying to be sneaky, and she's not being very sneaky. Anyway, she steals the keys. Then it cuts to her outside running toward the gate, and she's trying to use the keys to get out. Well, the jig is up because they already know what she's doing. In fact, it was probably due to the fact that she was so loud getting the keys in the first place. She gets the gate itself open, but the gate is also padlocked, and for whatever reason, she doesn't do anything about the padlock. She just tries to squeeze her way through. She almost gets through. Unfortunately, though, some nuns catch her, and so they grab her by the leg, and then they snap, I think it's her shin. They snap her shin, which is 2 bones. That would take a decent amount of force between the gates of the fence. And that's our introduction to this convent. Cutting, we don't really know how far in the future. We don't know how much time has passed. And, it's my presumption, in fact, that this is happening before the rest of the film, just because it's kind of put in place before the film, but there's no telling of time. Anyway, we cut to Sydney Sweeney. She is being sexually harassed in Italian, because she's going to go be a nun, and it's kind of suspicious that she had a one-way ticket, so the customs people are going to want to search through her stuff, and one of the guys who, I guess maybe he doesn't speak English, or he doesn't want to say it in English, he's like, she's going to be a nun. What a waste. I mean, yes, that is sexist, but also, yes, that is Sydney Sweeney right there. It's probably one of the most beautiful women in Hollywood at the moment. So I can kind of understand his sentiment. So she clears customs, goes to the convent, and immediately a lot of people are happy to see her, but like the second in command, whatever that nun is called, I'm sure there's a title of some sort. She's just a bitch. She does not like her at all. Very stern, not welcoming, and you kind of learn why a little bit later on. Um, anyway, she gets brought in. She does a little bit of training. The whole deal is this convent is special because it's essentially a nursing home for nuns. Nuns go there when they're near the end of their life. They don't have that much longer to live, and so they go there to be taken care of by the younger sisters. And I think it's a pretty cool idea. I really do. I think that's you could really do something with that. Does this film do something with it? Not really. There's one scene where you know uh, there's a nun having her butt wiped, and that's about it. Beyond that, there is a character, I can't remember what her name is, but she's kind of a kook. She's maybe dementia. We don't really know what she has. Um, that she pops in and out ever so often, doing weird stuff as you do as a dementia patient, I guess. So, that's really where it starts. And then one day, Sister Cecilia finds herself being ill. And I don't know if this is in the morning or what time it is, but she's vomiting a little bit. And basically they take her to the doctor there at the convent, and then they bring her into the Mother Superior's office, and they have the priest there and the cardinal there, and they're like, look, have you had sex? But they don't use that word, obviously. They can't just come out and say that. No, what they actually say, they have to translate it, because Sweeney has not learned, or Sister Cecilia, rather, has not learned Italian yet. And so they use the word Congress. I can't say that I've ever used that word or heard that word or seen that word used. Like, have you ever had Congress with a man? I've never heard that word used. But beside the point, then they get to relations. I think they use the word, I don't know if they actually use the word intercourse or even use the word sex. They might. Anyway, she's like, no, I've never done that at all. And then they're like, okay. And then they huddle back, and they're like, well, the doctor examined her. When she got her hymen was fully intact. And I don't know if you know this, but the hymen is not necessarily the best way to gauge virginity, because the hymen can be broken just through vigorous activity, like sports. So, what were they going to do if it had been broken? What if she was a basketball player or a rugby player? And yes, women play rugby. I know a couple of them that do. I mean, you know, vigorous activity, it's going to get torn. It's just how it is. It's just a thin piece of skin. It's supposed to come out anyway, eventually. But whatever. They're like, oh my God, well, this is a miracle. It is a bona fide miracle. She has now had an immaculate conception, so therefore, she is from there on out pretty much treated almost like a saint. Really, except for one of her friends, and I can't remember what her name is. She's except that she's just kind of there, and she's kind of irreverent. I think she's supposed to be French. I don't know. I watch a lot of European television, BBC and whatnot, so I barely hear accents anymore. But I think she's supposed to be French. I think her backstory is that she's supposed to be a prostitute, and because of one day where she got hit by a guy and she wound up hitting him back, she decided to go be a nun. Odd choice, but whatever. She's still kind of irreverent to the whole, wanting to be a nun sort of thing. But she kind of treats her like, oh yeah, I knew her before she was cool, kind of deal. So, yeah. One day, the Sydney, or Sister Cecilia, she's in the bathtub, and it's kind of weird that I guess even when they bathe, they never remove their clothing. So they just like time travel back to the Gregorian period when women used to wear shifts that were soaking wet, which are white and see through. Um, and so you have Sydney Sweeney just kind of like floating in this tub. It's like I don't know, probably it's about the size of maybe an 8-person jacuzzi, give or take. And one of the other nuns comes in, tries to drown her. And it's the number 2 nun. And she's saying, "Oh, it was supposed to be me. Why would they pick you? It was all supposed to be me." I think the number 2 nun might have been in on it. They don't really say, but I think probably. Anyway, they rescue her. She doesn't get drowned. And then some time passes. And that particular nun decides, either she decides or someone decides for her, that she's going to take the expressway off the roof. And so she completely face plants. Now, I don't think that's what killed her. They get a look at her face, and it is all kinds of gruesome, tore up. That being said, she did land in gravel, but I still don't think so. I'm pretty sure she was dead before she hit the ground. And then there's this motif of just these people in black robes and red red. It's not really a mask. I mean, I guess it is a mask. It's like a cloth mask. You can see out of it, but you can't see in. The person can't see your eyes or anything. It's just red. And those figures, there's a couple of them every so often that just kind of appear for no reason. There's a couple that appear in the window following the nun jumping off the roof. And one of the things that Sister Cecilia is shown, something that makes the place extraordinary, is they have a nail from the crucifixion. And it's kind of cool. I'm not sure what the significance is of it, but when Sydney Sweeney's character holds it for the first time, the Mother Superior is wearing gloves. Like, she puts gloves on to touch this holy relic. And then she hands it to Sister Cecilia, who is not wearing gloves. And so now she has it in her hand, and after holding it for a minute, she passes out. Well, this is probably where things start to go awry. All right. And that happened near the beginning of the film. So I kind of skipped over that. Now, moving forward, nothing else crazy really happens until one day, friend nun mouths off to the priest because they're all like, something is going wrong, something's not right, even though they don't really have that much of an indication to go off of. Like, I'm not really sure what she's pulling, but her women's intuition, I guess, just makes her go off completely crazily in front of everybody at the funeral of the second in command nun. And well, she's captured later and has her tongue cut out, and that's the last we see of her. We don't really see anything else of her. Then moving on forward, Sister Cecilia, she's starting to get second thoughts because the one nun has died. The other nun, she saw her having her tongue cut out. And then she's like, okay, look, we need to go to the hospital. I want to go to a real hospital. And so they say no, as you do, because you're trying to keep your cult stuff secret, I guess. And, her plan to counteract that is to kind of force their hand. So she takes a chicken, chops its head off, as you do at these sorts of places. You're out in the country, so you can't just run to the store and get food. And then she uses that blood to kind of stage a miscarriage, right? So she's covered in blood all over the place. And she's screaming and yelling, and they're like, "Oh, well, crap. I guess we gotta take her to the hospital now." So they get her in the car, and they get out the gate. They're going down the road, speeding toward the hospital. And then all of a sudden, like, we cut back to the convent, and one of the, I'm assuming it's the Mother Superior. She's sitting there, she's praying, and then, like, she looks down, and there's a feather on the ground. And then she comes underneath the bed, and like, oh, look, there's a chicken with its head cut off. So, what does she do? Well, unlike most movies that completely forget the fact we are in the 21st century and have instant communication, she pulls her cell phone out and calls the priest. And it's like, hey, bring her back. She's not really having a miscarriage. So, kudos there. I mean, instant communication really throws a wrench in a lot of stuff. If, movies would merely understand that these things exist. So, yeah, she's found out, but she tries to make a run for it anyway. She gets captured, brought back to the convent, and she's strapped in a wheelchair, taken downstairs to the lab. This is the first time we've seen the lab, and this is where we learn about what's actually happening, what's actually going on. So as she's kind of wheeled through this little area into the lab, you go past these jars of, it's really hard to make out what they are. The first one kind of looks somewhat like a fetus. The rest of them look less and less like fetuses. And basically the priest says, like, look, and he's a biologist, by the way, just FYI. He's like, so, you know that nail that you held on to? Well, it just so happens that not only is that a nail from the crucifixion, but also we have been able to look at it very, very closely and have found blood, tissue, and even bone. And with these, I really don't know what you call them. I mean, they're traces of, I mean, you would call it trace evidence if it was a crime, which I guess technically it kind of was. They've taken this stuff and they've re-engineered the DNA. Therefore, now they're attempting to clone Jesus Christ. So, not gonna say that you can't do that, but I'm going to say that you can't do that. So you have genetic material that has been exposed to God only knows what, pun intended, as far as UV light, time, air, other people, their cross-contamination. And you're going to take this 2,000-year-old sample and you're going to try and clone a person. Right. Don't think it's going to work. But, whatever. Movie's going to movie. Let's suspend disbelief. Okay, fine. Just because you can clone the person, Jesus Christ, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be able to clone the, how should we say, divine entity or semi-divine entity that was Jesus Christ, right? There's no guarantee that that's going to happen. And I don't think they ever really say why they're doing it. Other than something vague of like, oh, he's going to come back and he's going to save the world. No, that's not what happens when he comes back. He's coming back to end the world. Not to mention that, while the priest doesn't bring that up, I think Sister Cecilia, I think she brings it up. It's like, oh, you're just trying to bring around Revelation, huh? Well, whatever. He's like, she's all like, you're a monster. This is horrible. And the priest turns around and is like, no. You want to know what's really horrible is failing Christ over and over and over and over again and still having the wherewithal to try another time. So this winds up with Sister Cecilia having her feet branded. Like they literally, John Wick style, have a cross that they have in a furnace, heating up, take it red hot, put it on the soles of her feet. And they do that so that way she can't run away. Something interesting, this is actually kind of a callback because in a previous scene, the one dementia crazy nun has to be put back to bed. And when she does, she notices that on one of her, at least one of her feet, there is a cross that's been branded into her foot. So now we know where that came from. Well, anyway, she gets taken back to her room. Time passes, yada yada. And then, it's birthday. And she starts off by killing the Sister Superior, or not Sister, Mother Superior, with what appears to be an altar cross, except it was just sitting on some random table in some room. So she beats her to death with that. And then she goes and she kills the Cardinal, which I thought was kind of weird. I thought cardinals were supposed to wear red, but this guy wore all black. She kills the Cardinal by basically choking him to death with a rosary, and she puts enough force on it, it actually cuts the skin on his throat, so he's bleeding from the neck. And no one sees us, obviously. So she kills the Mother Superior, she kills the Cardinal, then she proceeds downstairs, with her water already being broken, proceeds downstairs to the lab, and there just happens to be a white jug sitting on the counter, literally labeled ethanol. Convenient. And she takes it, she splashes it all over everywhere. She gets into a tussle with the priest. She gets the upper hand, just barely, gets out, lights him on fire. Well, she lights the lab on fire with him in it. And, he's a scientist. You think you're going to burn a scientist alive? Pfft, it's not the 1500s. He's got a fire extinguisher. Another kudos for realizing modern technology and proper safety protocol. So he puts the fire out. Not before he gets horrifically burnt himself, though. Puts the fire out, and so the chase is on through the catacombs. And she is making her way around through the catacombs, making a lot of noise. Like, she's the only thing down there making noise at all. And the sheer fact that she almost makes it out, I find hard to believe. But, whatever. She almost makes it out. Priest comes up behind her, grabs her by the foot, yanks her back in. And instead of just going ahead and killing her outright, which he could have done. Like, the baby is coming today. You don't really need the mother. Instead, what he does is, with the mom, Sister Cecilia, fighting back, actively fighting back, he takes a scalpel and begins to cut a cesarean. He begins to perform a cesarean section. Well, maybe not the best idea, because Sister Cecilia just happened to have grabbed the whole crucifixion nail thing, because I guess her plan was maybe to take it with her, so they couldn't do it anymore. I'm not really sure. But anyway, she takes the nail, stabs him right through the neck, and, it's just blood everywhere, just all over the place. So I am definitely not taking away marks for gore. I thought that was perfect and realistic, to say the least. So she kills the priest, she climbs out, and the only thing left to be done, one more person to kill. There's a very visceral sequence where the camera is very close in on her face. So close, in fact, that her breath starts to fog up the lens. She's screaming her head off, gritting her teeth. she's giving birth. She's pushing. And then the baby's born with a wet thud in the dirt. She then bites through the umbilical cord, which I don't know what they used as a practical prop, but it's kind of grody, especially when you kind of realize what exactly the umbilical cord is used for. So she gnaws through that, walks over to a stone wall, grabs a stone, and then proceeds to crush the infant child. Now, to my understanding, there were two different cuts of the ending. One where it showed the deformed hellspawn, and one that it did not. And in fact, they spent money on, at least the director said that they had spent money to make a prosthetic baby that was supposedly a deformed hellspawn and not an actual human child looking average normal infant baby, right? Well, you don't actually ever get to see it. It is in the background. It's a form on the ground. It's very blurry. And you don't ever really get to see it. It doesn't cry out. In fact, they used a couple of mixture of animal noises. It really, just kind of sounded like something struggling to breathe, more or less. And so, yeah, she takes the rock, smacks it. It is done. Now, I don't like politics in my movies. And I have seen this touted by some, not everybody, but I've seen it touted online that this is in fact a pro-choice, affirmative, fourth trimester abortion sort of message. People have been reading into that, and if you look at what the director and Sydney Sweeney, who is a producer, what they have to say, they didn't want to say anything about it. They want you to come up with your own meaning to it. And I kind of said I kind of come on one of two sides, right? On the one hand, it's hellspawn, right? It's rape. And so you could justify killing a child outright. I mean, it's not like it's baby Hitler or anything, right? But we're not shown that. We're not shown that it's some deformed hellspawn that's going to go and bring around the end of the world, right? Now, if this were to play out in, say, the movie Omen, which I'm kind of excited to go see the one that's coming out here recently, or pretty soon, I'm sure most people probably would not have a problem with Damien having his head bashed in, because he's the literal Antichrist. In fact, the whole movie, it's been a while, but the original movie was basically people trying to kill him. That was the whole premise behind it. But then, again, they never show the baby as being a hellspawn. And the reason why they probably would not show a healthy-looking human child who did, in fact, cry out, as would most children, they did not do that, probably because that would put off just about everybody, including the pro-choice crowd. Most people don't have a stomach for actual murder when they can see it in front of them. And don't get me wrong, I'm pro-choice. The choices are motherhood, adoption, abstinence, contraception. Those are 4 choices. But a fourth trimester abortion is straight up murder. Like, there's no way around that. Like, you could have done stuff anywhere in between there, but you chose not to. And I'm not sure why she didn't. Like, I'm not sure why she didn't just, fall down the stairs or use a coat hanger or do something else. Like, if she's going to kill the baby, if she's going to abort it, like, you don't have to wait to the day it's born. But I guess they were trying to make a point. What that point was, well, like they say, they want you to come up with it. So, yeah, I didn't care too much for the ending. Now, had she died to kill the baby, I think that would have been a better ending. I think that would have been a much better ending. But it's not what they gave us. Overall, I would say this is a standard B-grade horror movie with a hint of patriarchy bad. That's about it. There's not much really to say about it. They do literally call out the patriarchy in the movie. And let's see. So the budget was really low. It was only around $9 million. And the last time I checked, I'm going to look it up right now. When I wrote the script a couple days ago, it had made $13 million worldwide. But I'm going to look it up so we can... I can give you an accurate number here. So, yeah, a little over $13 million worldwide. It only made a little more than 11,000, or excuse me, not 11,000, 11 million domestic, and it's made a little over 2 million international. So, not bad. I mean, I'm not sure how much money they spent, to promote it. But, 13 million on a movie that you only spent 9 million, I guess that's not terrible. So, let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Do you think I'm a patriarchal bigot? If you think that, that's fine. It's a free country. You can think whatever you want. Do you agree with the ending? Do you think it would have been better had she, maybe taken her own life to try to stop this from happening? I thought, me personally, the characters are really thin. I mean, even Sydney Sweeney's character is not really all that complicated. There's a little bit of a backstory where she almost drowned in a frozen lake and she was rescued. And then it's like, oh, well, he saved you for this. Here, have a baby. And then you're off to the races. And then that's it. Like, there's no character arcs. There's no... Yeah, I mean, that's just about it. I will say, though, coming back to the whole suspension of disbelief, Sister Cecilia, making as much noise as she was, running through the catacombs, could have been making a whole lot more noise. The sheer fact that she was able to keep as silent as she was, in a moment when she most definitely would have been going through labor. Like, I almost guarantee her that her labor would have started already by this point. Like, she would have more than likely have had dilation and probably would have gone into contractions. And while I've never been in a room with a woman giving birth, I know it's a very loud affair. And so the sheer fact that she was able to keep quiet until the opportune moment. I almost think that it might have, if you were going to kill the infant, I think would probably be even a better ending instead of her committing suicide to kill the infant. Would be to be on the run, maybe in the catacombs or somewhere else in the convent, have the baby, and then, now they're going to kill her. But, she escapes and then, does whatever she's going to do, kill the baby, kill the priests and all that, whatever. I don't feel that a woman who is that pregnant, whose water is already broken, is going to be able to get around, kill 3 people, and then while standing, just plop a baby. I don't know. I that's a bit much for me to disbelieve. So, again, folks, tell me what you think down in the comment section below. If you liked the movie, great. If you didn't like the movie, tell me why. And if you did like it, tell me why that is as well. I am very curious to, hear everybody's opinion. I think they could have done a little bit better with the writing. The movie itself, it's not bad. It's really not. It's not horrible. We've had um, some really bad movies lately, and I could say that this one's not really one of them. It's not a horrible movie. It just kind of depends on your political persuasion, I guess, and how you read into um, how you read into the end of the movie itself, which I would have rewritten, me personally. So, until next time, keep searching in the darkness.